broken at your feet, like an alabaster jar. Every piece of who I am.
Well, it's good to be here. I forgot to mention, of course, Pastor Brent's obviously not here. He's preaching away. It was a church that was needing someone to fill today, so he's there, and so we should be in prayer for him as well. We're starting a series today called The Great Restoration. And so I'm not sure how long Pastor Brent's going to be going through that, but I'm actually supposed to be speaking in a few weeks. I'm not going to give you the exact date because I don't want there to be a plummet in attendance and bring you mad at me. So in some mystery date in the near future, I'm going to be preaching again, and I'm going to try to kind of preach the second part of this message. That's if the Lord doesn't like sway my heart and go a completely different direction in the next couple weeks. But so the Great Restoration. I think we kind of all love that restoring, like obviously we got this beautiful car up here, restoring an old car. I've seen some old junk cars, 50s Chevy or whatever out in the field, and it's just rotting away, and for somebody to take that and just restore it to its full potential and glory and beauty of its heyday is just awesome, right? You see an old car driving down the road and just hear it too. I mean, just to hear it rumble is awesome, right? Or an old house, an antique house that's just got a lot of character to it and a lot of beauty and just the history of that. It's just really cool to that restoration. Now, I want to make a clear division here in defining restoration and a rehab, like rehabbing a house. Restoration and rehab. So I'm rehabbing a house. Rehabbing is when you take something of little to no value and you try to make it look a little bit less junky, right? That's what I've been trying to do for the last year. I've done a lot of work, and then sometimes I'm like, I have done so much already, and it's still got so much junk to do to it, and it has like very no significance whatsoever to anybody, but I'm hoping to make a little bit of money off of it, and it's kind of like, if you'll allow me to say this from the pulpit, kind of like polishing a turd kind of deal, alright, so it's, that's what I've been trying to do, and this past week, I had a really great time polishing this turd. Had my basement flood for like the 5th time, so it's pretty fantastic, new carpet, and it's muddy and nasty, and I had to like pull the carpet back, pull the padding out. Have you ever picked up a piece of padding, carpet padding that weighed like 300 pounds, and as you drape it over your shoulder, it's just like a waterfall? There's so much water in it. It is fantastic. You've got to try it. If you want to experience that, next time it happens at my house, I'll call you up and you can come over. So I took the carpet padding out, stuck some over our deck, and like draped it over so it can dry for a couple days. And then it rained, so I had to bring it in. The other parts I put over our car, so our garage flooded too. And so I don't know. I think it's like deteriorating the carpet or the padding. So there's like all this like flaky stuff. I thought driving the car would just like blow away. It's not. It's like caked on there, so I gotta like scrape it off now. So I wanted to burn it down this week. Again, I'm contemplating it if I can get away with it. But so if you hear the sirens and hear my house on fire, don't tell them that I did it on purpose. All right, please. I need some insurance money. So that is rehabbing something, taking something of little to no value and trying to make it a little bit more presentable. Restoration, again, is taking something that has some value, has some very unique character, and really trying to restore it to its full potential, to its original glory and beauty. And so the Great Restoration. All right, so I've laid that kind of definition. We're going to switch gears for just a minute, okay? So we're going to switch gears, and I just want to be real upfront and kind of honest with you guys. I've been kind of struggling lately, struggling spiritually, just not had my heart desire, it's just not been there, and been struggling, and I've just been feeling worn out, kind of just beat down, just not feeling connected with God, just like that kind of, you've probably heard that or felt that, just praying and you're just like, God, are you even there? And I know He's there, but I know there's something in me there's just something. I don't know what it is. And I've been worn out. I've been, just struggling. My heart's desire to be with God has just not been there. And I know that's pretty transparent and out front and probably not what you expected from the guy that's standing in this position. And probably want to leave right now. You're like, what am I doing here? You're supposed to be like, tell me how to live. No, I kind of don't really think that that's exactly what a pastor's position is always. I mean, yes, they're supposed to be out in front leading, but I think sometimes it's showing your vulnerability, showing that transparency and saying, I am struggling. And no, I don't have to share every detail of it, but I'm struggling. And I think Pastor Brent has done a great job of being transparent with us as a church family, and I appreciate that. And so I've been struggling. My desires have not been there. My heart's been cold. I've been worn out. Just been busy. And we all say that, And the term idle hands are the devil's handiwork or workmanship, right? Idle hands are the devil's workmanship, but I think busy hands can be the devil's distraction. And I think that's where I've found myself. I've been distracted. Been so busy doing stuff and always moving that I've been distracted from those things, and it's caused me to be worn out and cold. So that's how we've been feeling lately. And here Brent calls me this week and says, I need you to preach on Sunday. Like, for real? Sure, I'm trying to be cool with him on the phone, and I'm like, Lord, why? No, not now. This is not good. But I began to think about many characters in the Bible, and in particular the Old Testament prophets, and I really think that God uses everything in our life, right? He uses the good times, He uses the bad times, He uses our struggles, and He uses that in our lives, and He uses that in others' lives as well. And so my prayer is today that my struggle would resonate with you, and maybe you'd get something out of it, and my struggle would be a help to you. You think about some of the Old Testament prophets, you think about Elijah. I think I goofed this up big time in the last service. I said Jeremiah. I don't know. I was somewhere off in left field. But Elijah, prophets, the 400 prophets of Baal, strikes them all dead, calls fire down from heaven, consumes the sacrifice with all the barrels of water on it and stuff. The next day, you know what he was doing? Running for his life, scared to death, sitting under a juniper tree crying because he was so worried because he was going to get killed, right? I'm like, dude, you just have fire fall from heaven yesterday and you're crying because you're afraid you're going to die, right? And you think of Jeremiah. I think I'm going to take on that name because it seems like every time I preach, I kind of get choked up and I really get embarrassed about it. But Jeremiah, he's the weeping prophet, and he's just always struggling with that kind of stuff. Think about Hosea. God tells him to go marry a woman of a particular trade. If you don't know that story, you can go look it up today. These guys had some struggles, right? They had some hard times and times that they didn't feel like serving and going forward. But God used those circumstances, used those situations in their life to resonate with people and to get that message out and to really to have that empathy, Hosea does this, he marries Gomer, and all the situations that happen there is to show the relationship between God and Israel, and just so he can better give that message out. Again, if you don't know that story, we're not getting into it today, but I would definitely encourage you. It's probably my favorite story of redemption in the Bible. So, with all that said, again, I'm just like, why this week? I'm not feeling it. But again, I hope that my struggles will resonate with you and be able to be a blessing to you today. We're going to be in John chapter number 4. John chapter number 4 today, and probably very familiar with this passage of Scripture, but I hope to take a different angle with it and show you a few things, hopefully. I'm going to cut a little bit of this reading because I felt like I read for 15 minutes last service. So also, if you just kind of bear with me, man, we're gonna jump around a little bit. Again, probably familiar with this story. Jesus meets this woman at this well in Samaria. Let's go ahead and read in verse number 4. Actually, verse 3. He left Judea and departed again into Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being weary with his journey, sat thus on the well. And it was about the 6th hour. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. And it gets really into more the personal connect with the Samaritan woman. Not going to be the focus of our message today. So let's jump over and look at verse number 25. The woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Jesus saith unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. And upon this came his disciples and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no man said, What seekest thou, or why talkest thou with her? The woman then left her water pot and went her way into the city, and saith to the men, Come, see a man which told me all things that ever I did. Is not this the Christ? Then they went out of the city and came unto him. In the meanwhile, his disciples prayed him, saying, Master, eat. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that you know not of. Therefore, said the disciples one to another, Hath any man brought him aught to eat? Jesus saith unto him, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. Say not ye, There are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest? Behold, I say unto you, Lift up your eyes, and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. And he that reapeth receiveth wages, and gathereth fruit unto life eternal, that both he that soweth and he that reapeth may rejoice together. All right. A little bit, still a lot of reading there, but it was good. Good story, good message there. I have one point for you today. As I began to go through this chapter and really put all my thoughts down, I had like over 6 pages of notes, and I'm just like, I've got to condense this down. And so, again, I'm going to be preaching in a few weeks, and so I'm hoping to take the other 2 points that I have and use them in a couple weeks. So, one point today, hopefully easy for you guys to remember and something to take with you. Restored through faithfulness. Restoration through faithfulness. Can you say that with me? Restoration through faithfulness. Being restored through our faithfulness. You know, it's typical and it's kind of instinctual for us when we are weary, when we're worn, when we're caught up in sin, when our heart is cold, and all those things. It's very just natural for us to just kind of slither away and just kind of back out of the situation and just maybe shed that weight off and just say, I'm done, I can't do it anymore, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm just done with it all. I think that's just our natural inclination to do when we're not feeling the presence of God in our life, and we just feel weak and worn. But I want us to see today that we can be restored by walking and continuing through those times, being faithful through those times, that we can see and be restored in our soul and our spirit by walking faithfully through those struggling times. I want us to really consider Jesus in this story. I think a lot of times when we think of this passage, we automatically think of the woman and that kind of stuff. And that is a phenomenal story to look at in that aspect. But I want us to really consider Jesus today. I want us to look at perhaps more of the humanity side of Jesus. I don't want us to get confused with the fact that Jesus is God, he is deity, right? But I want to bring out that he's 100% man and 100% God. I want to look more at the human side of Jesus in this. So I don't want us to kind of mess up that theology there, okay? So when we're talking about some of these things, just remember the humanity side of Jesus, all right? So as we look at Jesus, we think about this story, we think about what he has just come through, what he has just done. It says that he traveled from Judea to Samaria. Now, Judea is more of a region, it's not like a city, but if you just kind of take a ballpark where he was when he started walking to Samaria, he has literally walked over 40 miles. 40 miles for one woman. 40 miles. To say that Jesus was hungry, thirsty, tired, exhausted would be quite an understatement. Would you agree? He is definitely tired at this time. He's probably sore. Probably the thing that he wants to do right now is find some shade and curl up and rub his sore legs and get something in his belly and get a nice big old drink out of that well and just rest. He is worn out. He is struggling in his physical sense. He is struggling. The last thing he wants to do is probably pour every little bit that he has left into this woman that he's never even met. Physically speaking, again, he has just traveled 40 plus miles. And we know he's hungry. The disciples just went to go get some food, right? So if they're hungry, you can guarantee he's hungry. Because I just knowing Jesus and seeing the things that he has done, there's the times that he's fasted, it's very likely that he fasted this entire way. Could you imagine walking 40 miles and for several days and not eating anything? And then getting to this place and you are spent. I mean, you just want to crash, right? What's he do? He pours himself into this woman. The disciples are hungry. I'm sure that he was hungry. I can imagine, in the evenings when they sat down to rest for that night before continuing on their travels, and maybe they had a little bit of rations of food with them, and the disciples are like, "Here, Jesus, we don't have much, but here, you can have some of this." And Jesus is like, "No, boys, you go ahead and get that." I could just, I wouldn't say that would be a stretch for our Lord to have done those things. So again, to say that he was tired is an understatement. I want us to notice how he was in the situation to start this process with this woman. Again, he's thirsty, right? He comes to this well. Let's look at verse number 7 real quick. He uses the situation that he's in to begin this process with this woman, right? He uses the current situation. He's thirsty, and he uses that to begin to minister to this woman, just as we can use the current situation we're in, not feeling so hot, not feeling so spiritual, and we can use those times to begin to minister to people. Look at verse number 7. Then there cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, simply, give me to drink. Give me a drink. I need a drink. I'm thirsty. Listen, woman, I just walked 40 miles for you. I need a drink, right? Jesus used his situation to begin to minister to this woman, and I think that you and I can use our situation, hopefully today, that I can use my situation to begin to help you and encourage you. As I said, that every circumstance, every failure, and every victory, every heartbreak, every spiritual emptiness, everything that happens in our lives can be used to minister to someone. Romans 8:28, we got that up on the screen, says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose, right? All things work together for good. I think a lot of times we think all the good things work together for good. Every good thing I do, if I'm strong in my devotions with the Lord, I can use that to minister to someone. If I've been strong in my prayer life, I can use that to minister to someone. Man, if I've really shared Christ with a lot of people, I can use that to teach, to train, to use that for someone. But it doesn't say all the good things. He says all things can be used for good, but not all good things can be used for good. It's all things. So your heartbreak, your struggle, your sin, even, that God can use all of it for his good and for his purposes. All things work together for good. As I said, I certainly did not feel like preaching this week. My emotions, my circumstance, my faults, all those things were running through my head, and just maybe like those Old Testament prophets, maybe just like these situations, that maybe my struggles could be an opportunity to minister to someone today. And so that's my prayer for us today. As we continue on and thinking about Jesus, and in verse 4, it says that I must needs go through Samaria. We're probably familiar with that verse as well. Why did he go 40 miles for one woman? I mean, think of all the things going against this situation. One, she's a woman. That's not, in that culture, in that day and age, she was, a lower class. She's a Samaritan. Push her down the line a little bit more. She's 40 miles away. There's no, high rate of speed traveling. Jesus walked everywhere he went. I mean, how many women did he pass on the way there? How many lame people did he pass? Why was the purpose of going to this specific woman? Why did he say, I got to go to this woman. I got to go to Samaria. First thing I want us to see is that he did not go to this woman because he needed this woman. Later on, she leaves her water pot, right? And she goes to the city and she says to the men of the city, that's big, right, in this culture, to the men of the city, come see a man that tells me all the things that I've done. Is not this the Christ? And we read later on that her entire town is transformed. It's changed by her testimony. Jesus didn't need her to go to her city. I think we might have a false premise thinking that God needs our help. God doesn't need your help. He doesn't need my help in any way, shape, or form. God is self-sustaining. He doesn't need us to survive. He doesn't need us to get his work done. But he wants to involve us. He wants to make you a part of what he is doing. Why did Jesus go to this woman? He wanted to bring her in with him and allow her to be a part of what he was doing. He didn't need her. She needed him. God doesn't need you and I. We need him. Again, he says that he must needs go through Samaria. Again, he didn't need her, but he had a desire to restore this broken woman. He had a passion for this woman, and it compelled him to walk 40 miles to see her, to talk with her. I'm grateful that Jesus is in the restoration business. He is in the restoring business of broken people, and I am one. I'm broken, and I'm grateful that he's in that business. I've got more failures than victories by a long shot. I've got more doubt than confidence all the time. I've got more questions than I've got answers. The more I dig, the more I study things, sometimes I come up with more questions, and some of those questions I haven't been able to find an answer for. Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes that makes me a little shaky, and sometimes that gets me to the position where I felt like I've been here recently. I've got more failures than victories. I've got more doubt than confidence. I've got more questions than answers, but Jesus is in the business of restoring. So why did he go? Why did Jesus go? I think Jesus went because he knew he had a duty to uphold. He went to this woman because even though he was tired, even though he was exhausted, even though he was hungry and thirsty, that he had a duty to uphold. Look at verse number 34. The men have already come back with some food, and verse 34 says, Jesus saith unto them, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. We have a duty to uphold. Jesus knew he had a will to do, a mission to accomplish. Even in Gethsemane, as Jesus prayed, God, not my will, thy will be done. We have a mission, we have a duty to uphold. As I said, I did not want to preach today. But as I began to think about that, I thought there's a whole lot of people that didn't want to teach a Sunday school class, that didn't want to go to a foreign field, certainly didn't want to give their lives. But we have to remember that we're on mission. We have a duty every day, everywhere. And lest we forget and think that our mission, that the purpose of our life is just going to work and paying our bills and just going through that routine day in and day out. I think as Christians we can get so caught up in the day-to-day life that we think that that's all I'm living for, is going to work, making money, paying the bills so that I can retire. Mm-hmm. Really? Is that what he gave his life for, so that you could pay your bills? And I got my ticket to heaven, so I'll be going there when I die. No. Our mission is not just that. It's the souls of men for the glory of God. Souls of men for the glory of God. Now, I never realized this. I was always taught, win people. That was, ingrained in me from a child. And heard a missionary 4 or 5 years back, and phenomenal missionary. And he brought this out, and I never had thought about the fact that my purpose is not to win people to Christ. That's not my purpose as an individual. My purpose is to bring glory to my Lord and my Savior. Now, winning people to Christ brings glory to my Savior, but that is not the end. My purpose is to bring glory to God, but our mission is to bring the souls of men and see them saved, again, for the glory of God, even when we don't feel like it, even when we're not doing so hot, even when we're struggling, even when I've fallen in sin. My purpose, my mission, I am on mission every day, everywhere I go, and it is to for the souls of men for the glory of God at all times. I mentioned at the beginning that we had 218 in our services last Sunday, and our record at awesome. But that is certainly not, that's not the goal. The goal's not 300, it's not 500. The goal is never and should never be how many people come and sit in a building and have some religious ceremony on Sundays. That is not the goal. The goal is not how many people can we get in one building at one set time to do these things. The goal is, and the measure of success is not how many people come here, but how many are being the church out there Monday through Saturday. Now, if we say we had 218 in Christ last week, boom. Let's cheer about that. Let's get excited about that. But just because we had 218 people sitting in a building, it's awesome. I don't want to completely blow it away, but that's not it. That's not where it ends. It wouldn't end if we had 500 last week or 1,000 last week. The goal is how many are being the church, seeing the needs, serving the needs, walking the extra mile, or in Jesus' case, walking the extra 40 miles to go and to minister to one person, loving, sharing Jesus in action and in word. You see, the church is not some ceremony you attend on the weekend. It's what you are and what you do each and every day. You and I, we are the church. It's not this building, right? We know that. It's not this building. And we're on mission, and we have a duty to uphold. Well, I'm busy. I'm tired. Don't feel like it. struggling, well, go ahead and stop the excuses and realize that you still got that mission. You still got that duty. And that duty is not playing goody two-shoe Christian when we walk in this door and acting like we've got it all together. Obviously, I've already shared that I don't. I think we have this idea of serving God, reaching people. It's just something else to like add to our schedule. It's just like another burden. It's just something, another weight to carry, and I've already got so much stuff I'm doing and so much weight. I don't know if I can add it into my schedule. It's just so tight. It's just so much stuff going on. Serving God, reaching people should not be something that we try to squeeze into the schedule. It should be the schedule itself. It's clearing everything else off and saying, okay, I'm going to serve God. I'm going to fulfill my purpose and my mission. I'm going to uphold my duty. And if there's some time for some other things, then I'll squeeze those in. But that should be the goal. That should be our purpose. That should be our ambition, is to serve God, to reach people, not trying to squeeze it into, but letting it dictate everything else that we do in our lives. Paul said in Romans 9 that his passion, his purpose was so revolved around the souls of men for the glory of God that he said, I wish myself accursed from Christ so that my people could be saved. He says, I would give up my own salvation. I would give up my relationship with Christ. I would spend eternity in hell myself if I could make sure that my own kid, my family, and my people would be saved. So does that fit with how I'm living? Does that fit with how we're living? Are we on mission? Are we so concerned about the world, or do we walk through the store and we're like, I can't talk to that person because they judge me, or like, really? Paul was so concerned about the souls of men that he said, I wish myself accursed so that they might know Christ. Serving God, loving people is not just another thing to add to you, to stress you out, to wear you out. It's, as my title, my point is that we are restored through faithfulness. Restoration comes through faithfulness, even when you don't feel like doing it. It's we are restored through being faithful, and I'm going to show you how this is in just a moment. Again, Jesus was exhausted. Physically, he had needed food and rest. Physically and spiritually, you and I need rest. I need restored. We're worn. Sin has subdued us. Distance has frightened us. But we have to be faithful, because it's through our faithfulness that lives are transformed and we can be restored in our strength. Let's look at verse number 31 through 34 here. It says this, in the meanwhile his disciples prayed him, saying, Master, eat. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that ye know not of. Therefore said the disciples one to another, Hath any man brought him aught to eat? Jesus saith unto them, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. Verse 32 again, he says, I have meat to eat that you know not of. I recall stories of lives that I've seen Christ change. And I can recall I had a Bible study at Williamsburg High School. And just one particular day, it was just phenomenal. It was just so cool. I had hardly any kids that ever came. There'd be like 80 kids down in the lunchroom, like getting ready for track practice or baseball or something, and I'd have like 2 boys that showed up every week. I'm like, this is great, you know. And but this one day, these 2 boys and I were talking, and I had some pizza, I think, and I see like kids walking down the hall, and like every time they walk by the door, they're like looking the whole way, and they're like, what's going on in there? And then they like back up, and they walk through again, and like, hey, hey, you guys want to come in? And got to talking with one of the kids and just began to share Christ with them and things. And sure enough, I'd get like a few minutes into it, and another kid would walk by, and they're like, again, it's like, hey, you want some pizza? You want to come in? So I'd start all over again. I kid you not, this happened like 6 or 8 times. And I'd start all over again. And I don't remember how many, but we had several kids that gave their hearts to Christ that day. And I remember getting in the car, and I was just ecstatic, man. I was so overwhelmed with joy and so restored in my soul. And I'm like, before I was so upset, because I'm like, I got these 2 stinking kids that come every week, and they already go to church, and it's not even our church. And I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. And there's 80 kids down at the cafeteria that won't come down. They're going to go play baseball, but they won't come and do this Bible study with us. And I remember like screaming in the car just out of excitement and just knowing how I was restored through that faithfulness. I've seen other teenagers. I remember a couple at a camp, at church camp a few years back, that 2 of them in particular, that they're just whole. They were just rough, had rough goes and rough backgrounds, and I know the girls struggled with cutting a lot, and their whole demeanor, their whole facial expression, their countenance, the Bible refers to it a lot, it was just broken and sad, and it was heartbreaking to look at. And I remember those 2 kids giving their hearts to Christ, and I swear to you, you could look on their faces, and there was such a transformation in just their appearance. It was phenomenal. It was amazing. You know, there's times, again, that we don't feel like it. We're struggling, we're hurting, we're worn out. But it's faithfulness through those things that you and I can be restored. Yeah, it's sometimes I think we get upset because they're like, yeah, well, God's doing something in me so that I can do it for somebody else. But we're kind of over here and we're like, yeah, but I'm still struggling, you know? I'm still worn out. I'm still hurting. What about me? God, you just doing this for somebody else? What about me? You know? But we can be restored through our faithfulness, and Jesus was restored through his faithfulness. Again, let's see in his physical side here. Because Jesus was faithful, even though he was exhausted, even though he was struggling, even though he was hungry and thirsty, and he just wanted to rest. He was faithful, and he was restored through his faithfulness. He says, boys, I don't need your food. But Jesus, we went to town, we got some food, we got some good stuff. I don't need your food, boys. I'm good. I have meat to eat that you know not of. Wow. If you're struggling, worn out, again, we want to tuck tail and run. We want to shut it off. We want to just lay it all down. But when we're faithful, pushing forward, even through those times, we can have some of those times. We can have some of those times when we say, God's filled me again. So I've felt the last few weeks and through even just preparing for this message, God has restored me. I'm not saying I've gotten back together and tomorrow I'm not going to struggle, because probably, you know, as soon as I get in the car, I'll probably start thinking about all the things that I'm still struggling with. But we've got to continue to be faithful through those things. Watch God restore not only somebody else's life, but restore your strength, restore your joy, restore your desire to reach people for the glory of God. Jesus was restored through his faithfulness, and I believe that you and I can be restored as well. Maybe you're here today and you look at this woman and the situation, and we didn't get a whole lot into her, but she's that broken woman. She's hurting, and she doesn't know the Lord until this meeting happens. Maybe you're in that situation and you are, again, heartbroken, and you need that living water that Jesus talks about in this passage. We want you to know, first of all, here that we desire your questions. We welcome your questions and any doubts and fears and of is this Bible real? Is Jesus really, did he really live? Did he really do the things that is he really God in human flesh? We welcome those questions here. We may not have every answer for you, but we'll try to walk through with you. We welcome those questions and we desire you to ask them because we want your life to be transformed just like this woman and you to have that greatest restoration of your soul and of your life. Or maybe you're a believer and you're just flat out busy. And you are flat out worn out and you're distracted. Your heart's cold. You've lost focus of the mission. You're not on duty. You're not on task. Just going to work, paying the bills, trying to be good. I want to tell you that you can be restored through faithfulness. It's not time to give up. It's not time to take it off and then throw it, cast it aside. It's time for you to continue to move forward and see God's restoration in your life through that faithfulness. And I tell you what, it is some of the greatest experiences that I've ever had to see God use me to reach someone else and see their life transformed. And when I see their life transformed, it renews something deep within me. And I'll be the first one to tell you that I need that. I need that again. I need God to move and through me and in me. I need Him to keep me focused on the mission so that I can see someone's life transformed, not because of me, but through me, that He would allow me to be part of His plan and His mission and let me just catch a glimpse of what He's doing in somebody else's life and let me see that so that I can be restored in my heart. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to know how to do it all. I just got to be faithful. That's it. God doesn't need anything from you. He just wants your faithfulness. And if you'll be faithful, He'll be faithful in His part, and you'll see lives transformed, not because of you, but through Him. And as you see those lives transformed, I guarantee that you will be restored in your soul and in your spirit, and that brokenness that you once had will be restored to full life, and you will be so ambitious and so desired to see someone else come to know Christ that you'll just be going like crazy telling people about God's love. So again, if you're not a believer, if you've got questions, we welcome those questions. We want to see God transform your life. If you're a believer and you're struggling, just keep walking. Keep being faithful. Watch as God restores your heart and your life through your faithfulness. Restoration through faithfulness. Let's bow.
I am broken at your feet, like an alabaster jar. Every piece of who I am laid before your majesty, and I will bow my life at your feet, at your feet, and my lips so lost for words will kiss your feet, kiss your feet. And I will bow my life at your feet, at your feet. And my lips so lost for words will kiss your feet, kiss your feet.